Hey everybody, welcome to another week of More Than Just a Game podcast with your boy CA Motivates. Tonight we have an amazing guest who's going to be joining us for tonight's episode. An amazing career, and no doubt tonight that we're going to get some takeaways and some gold wisdom from our guest tonight. So make sure, like always, have your pen and paper ready, have your phone recorder ready, because tonight is going to be amazing. Let's go. Hey everybody, hope all is well. It's your boy CA Motivates here. Another week of More Than Just a Game podcast. And today we have a very special guest, someone that I've had the privilege of playing alongside, but also watch flourish in their career and what they've achieved. And what I love about my guest today or tonight is that even though he's achieved all these things that he's achieved, he still has a heart for community and empowering people. So welcome to More Than Just a Game, Tamati Ellison, Mr. Stand By Me. How's it going, man?
It's going good, bro. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, brother. Awesome, brother. So how's everything going? How's the family?
Family's well. Yep, busy. I can hear them out there now doing their homeschooling. So it's good. We homeschooled our children in Tokyo for the last little bit. So we're used to the homeschool and kind of living in a bubble, so to speak. I thought I'd retired as a teacher. I thought they're going back to school, but we've got another few weeks, which is cool.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, like I said before, man, it's awesome to have you on board this evening, and even after all these years, we've been able to, like I said, play alongside each other, tour some beautiful countries, have some fun times on tour, which we won't speak about because might get arrested. But it's awesome after all these years, even just watching you, man, smash it in the rugby scene. And to have you with us today is such a blessing, man. But what we want to do is, we want to start off with some warm-up questions. For those who have come on the morning just again, we had Liam last week. He had some funny answers for his for these questions. But the reason why we do the warm-up question is just to get the vibes going, and just have bit of fun as well. So we've got 3 questions for you, Tams, and the first question is one that probably everybody's probably growing up watching this show. But I just wanted to ask you, just for the viewers that are watching this evening, and that is this question here: were you ever, or were you a fan of the man Barney the Dinosaur?
I was. I liked the part at the end, the song, and obviously the hugging. The show itself was interesting, but the song's catchy. I think one of our Hurricane wingers, Auckland boy, David Smith, used to sing the theme song quite often. So,
I Love You song, eh?
Yeah, that used to remind me of the show, and he does a pretty good version.
Do you reckon you can do us a look now?
You might YouTube David Smith and
YouTube David Smith, eh? Awesome. You're a bit of a singer as well. I remember growing up in the 90s, and then later on, I didn't even know it was you until later on. I think early 2000s. It came to me that, wow, this is the Stand By Me kid, the kid that sang Stand By Me. How did that come about? Stand By Me.
Yeah,
All Black Dad.
Kind of we started getting into a wee bit of acting and doing some, I don't know what you call it, that kind of thing, auditioning and stuff. And that was one of the ones that come up. And I didn't sing much. I didn't used to sing much, but I used to do a wee bit of dancing. So
man.
Before the Crump days. We were auditioning at a place and managed to get that, and ended up being quite a big thing. But it was a cool, enjoyable experience for someone, a 10-year-old, meeting the All Blacks and being involved with all that.
That was I remember watching that as a kid, and I was like, man, I want to meet that kid. I want to meet that kid because it was. I think it was at a time where that's when everybody just wanted to be All Black. That's where a lot of dreams were cemented. But I think for me, it was awesome was to be able to meet you years later, and then representing our country together at junior level. It was awesome. But yeah, no, man, you're the man, bro. I think the only dancing I did was the break the leg dance. Next question, bro. And this one's a regular for our podcast, and that is around because I love superheroes, man. So that's how I thought I'll just ask this question. If you were recruited by the Avengers, like if they came, what's his name? That guy with the patch. If he came, if Nick Fury came and pretend I'm Nick Fury because Nick Fury had a bald head. They were like, hey, Toms, Toms, man, like, someone in the Avengers, man, like, which superhero would you be? And also, what extra superpower would you add to that superhero?
I've thought about this long and hard. I think I'll be Iron Man. I just like he seems to love his work, He's got his little studio there, and he enjoys developing things for for the ultimately what he thinks is the safety of other people. I think one of his issues is he can be a little bit hard on himself.
Truly.
So I make sure that he's Iron Man, but potentially a little bit more relaxed. And I think I have maybe similar traits, and then I can be hard on myself at times, and you miss a lot of the moments. You can stress a lot about things that are not necessary. So I'll be Iron Man.
Awesome. And what extra power would you have or add to Iron Man?
Nah, I'll probably put some moldy designs on his suit.
Nice, that's awesome. That's nice.
Yeah, just so when he's flying around, people know what it is.
What it is, the man. You know what? It's fitting, like you being Iron Man, because I remember watching you, even junior level, and even like in the as you got older, and that was just the big hits you used to do. So I think maybe we'll call you Iron Shoulders.
It might have been me bouncing the other way back.
Oh, the man. All right, our third and final warm-up question is, and you got to answer this. You got to be careful when you answer this, because I don't want you to sleep on the couch or anything, man.
Yeah. And I already do.
Go without food, And this question here involves your missus. Who's a better cook, you or your wife?
Yeah, that's an easy one. My wife's Rarotongan, so we get the big feast going on.
The poke.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everything. So
mayonnaise.
Unfortunately, I get a wee bit of gout, so I can't have too much shellfish. But yeah, I mean, that's one piece of advice. If you get a wife who can cook.
You know what, bro? I'm with you on that one, man. I suffered a bit of gout as well.
Oh, well.
Yeah, bro, and I remember, I think the worst was a couple of years ago, bro. Like, I couldn't even walk, bro.
Yeah.
And I had it in my ankles, my knees, and all of that. So definitely no, bro. And I call it, anyone that gets a little bit of the gout, I call it the G.
Oh.
Part of the G squad, man. Nasty.
See, you don't want to be part of that squad.
Part of that squad. But yeah, I'm just like you. Like, you got to be careful on a few things. But yeah. No good. But what is it? No, that's cool, man. So yeah, awesome. So I know that you're not going to sleep on the couch because you answered correctly. But that's awesome, bro. Thanks for answering those questions just to warm things up. Now to some more deeper questions and that, just to get to know you a little bit more, or especially for our audience, is about your background. Like, so who is Tamati? We know the amazing things that you achieved over the years and all that, but who was Tamati? Where did you grow up? And when did you start playing? Family. Who was Tamati?
Yeah, so I come from a family of five, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. I'm the second eldest. I'm fortunate to have both parents. I grew up in a place called Porirua, which is in Wellington, a city of opportunity.
Yo.
A few of the famous faces is Jerry Collins was probably one of our first rugby players, the great Jerry Collins, Rodney Soyalo, John Schwalger, who you know fondly, Anthony Piranesi and Serge Lilo, Apina Katini, Buxton Popoli'i, Rob Fruin, Alapati Leua. So we had a strong group of rugby players kind of in and around my age during that period. So I grew up here, been here all my life, and I've actually just moved back home as of, the start of this year from Japan. I grew up learning Te Reo Māori, so I speak enough, probably not as much as I should, but I speak enough of the reo, which I'm very, very fortunate to have.
Awesome.
Not everyone has that ability or has had the chance to grow up learning that. I went to Mana College, a small college. You might know Ronnie Soyalo was there, and also the current All Black halfback TJ Perenara. So he's doing great things in the community. I'm from that same college. When I was there, we struggled a wee bit. We kind of were in the third division, our first 15, so quite a small school, and we only really had one team. And sometimes that we had to ring in some of the boys' uncles to play because we couldn't make up the numbers. But it's the way it goes sometimes in the community. If you do what it takes, and then the age of the group might be really young, from 14 to the older guys in the team who were 21, like when you played in high school. That's where I grew up, Mana College, and then played all my junior rugby for Norths. Played a bit of rugby league when I was younger, a bit of soccer, and then moved to Norths, and I've been with Norths ever since. Obviously on the road, come through Wellington, Lions, Hurricanes, and then once I left the Hurricanes in 2010, I kind of on a bit of a 10-year kind of tour around the world, which was Melbourne, one of the best cities I've been to. Was there for 3 years. Tokyo, which was over a 10-year period, and then down in Dunedin for a year and a half. So it's been very blessed with a long career, and the only thing I've really finished with in terms of injuries is gout and grey hair from homeschooling my children. But that's pretty much my story in a nutshell. As I said, very thankful, come from a great community, and fortunate to be back in my community now, looking at ways that I can kind of help the next generation.
Man, that's awesome, man. Like I said, knowing you since junior days, but also, got to, catch up a bit at the Rebels when you were there, and but just to see what you've been able to do from a very young age to now, is a testament to your character, because, the path that you chose is not an easy path. Many want to be at that level, but only few are chosen, and the few that are chosen are the one that you mentioned that are the ones that don't just do what it takes, they do whatever it takes, to get to that level. And I've heard so much about Porirua. I know a few people here in Melbourne, they speak Leo Porirua, they're P-Town hard out. They speak about it all the time. But just those names that you mentioned, man, that would have been an awesome environment to grow up in, having everybody, having the same vision. And that would have been like, rubbed off on everybody. And that, was there anyone that you looked up to, growing up?
Well, in rugby terms, you kind of look up to, when on TV, the Carlos Spencers and those guys. But I was also lucky that my father used to take me to, games, and when you probably have the same thing when you grow up in a small community. You always have those guys in the community who are great players. Willie Lafayette. He came to our school, Mana College, in the late 1990s, and he was probably one of the best rugby players in the country at that time for his age. So both him and his brother Hayden and the younger brother Tom, when they came to our school, it gave us a real lift. So there was guys like that. Serge Lilo's dad, Tully Lilo, Matt Roundtree and Glyn Ford were guys that were at our club at Norths, where we used to go as young guys, and that was probably the pinnacle at that stage, because you weren't really thinking too far past potentially playing for, your club again, Norths, after you left school, especially for myself, because I didn't go to a town school or an all-boys school where the rugby was strong.
Mm.
We were strong at breakdancing and crumping.
Yo.
So we actually were strong at volleyball. But yeah, those are the kind of guys. As I said, a few guys on TV, but you also have those local heroes that you follow, and obviously Jerry Collins was the king here. So he really blazed the trail for a lot of people, and made a lot of us believe that he was probably a superstar from a young age. But he always one thing he always connected with his city. He always came home and at the time, he didn't have to. He was playing professionally. He could have had a lot of excuses not to come to the club rooms, to play for the club, to get around the schools, to get around the community. But he always made the effort to be there. So in terms of a community person, he was right up there as well.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Yeah, Jerry is the man, and may he rest in peace. He's what he did on the field, and just speaks volumes of who he is, and definitely encouraged a lot of us watching him play, and at the real Iron Man. But when did you decide that rugby was going to be your pathway? Like, when did you decide that, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in, and I want to do whatever it takes?
Yeah, probably when I left school, I was a wee bit frustrated because my rugby wasn't going that well, and I started playing for my club, not the premier side, just one of the senior sides at my club, and I kind of set a goal the year I got out of school to really give it a good go. I wasn't in any academies or any rep teams, so a lot of that training started, myself and running hills and finding ways to...
Especially in Wellington, eh?
Oh man, yeah. There's not as many in Porirua, but when I got out of school, I made that decision. And it's funny when you make a real decision, how things move around you. Things just start opening up, and it's as small as having a bag of balls, because at the time rugby balls were expensive as well. So if you're a goal kicker, you needed a kicking tee and some balls. So. But I think after school made a decision, and then I think a year and a half later was fortunate enough to trial for New Zealand under-19s, and that's where we finally met, and I managed to kind of get in the system, if you will.
Yeah, I remember catching up with you back then. I think you had like a bit of John Travolta here. As well. I mean, I had hair back then as well. I finished my career with no hair and a bit of gout.
Oh man, yeah. I definitely had long sideburns. I look at photos now, it's going...
I think that's what was in back then. There was those rock sideburns, eh?
Yeah, that might have been right.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And in your career, like, I mean, you've played for some amazing teams. What's been a career highlight for you?
Making that New Zealand under-19 team was big for me, because it was a massive shift from where I'd been 18 months before.
Yeah.
It grew my belief that if I worked hard, that I could achieve something, and I probably used that same formula for the rest of my career. So that was an important one. New Zealand Sevens, similar. It was a team that you kind of, I never really had any speed. I was fit enough though, so I could run fast enough for long enough, and the Sevens was a big bump. It gave me a lot of confidence to be on the field with some, you're playing guys like Sarevi and Bobo, William Ryder, that it's hard for anyone to mark them. So that gave me a lot of confidence. Playing for, being announced for the Hurricanes is great, because it means you can potentially be paid and make a career out of it.
Yeah. So
the age grade teams are great, but it still means you're going to be building, or still means you got to find the job. So when it became possible to make a career out of it, that was nice. I could start really just focusing on the rugby. The All Blacks obviously is great. Getting announced and then putting the jersey on, that feeling was a massive rush, and I think when you're first in there, or my experience anyway, you're more putting it on like a fan. You know, you're a fan of it, so it is a bit like wearing your superhero suit, you know, for the first time. And again, New Zealand Māori was a team that was, again, I followed for a long time. It was dear to my heart, and it was just a great team, one of the best teams to be involved in terms of culture. That comes naturally, and a lot of players, I think, crave that, especially Māori players, really crave that experience. So, but all the teams I've been involved in, I've just been grateful. I'm very, very fortunate to have the opportunity, and I made sure that every time I played, that when I put on my jersey, I said, if this is the last time I play, you know, how do I want to be remembered? And not necessarily remembered as from the fans, but, you know, making sure when I put it on that I've done the jersey justice. And probably towards the end of my career, it got a little bit jobby. You know, I was putting it on thinking, oh man, you know, and it's different when you have children. I have 5 children, and other things become more important. I wanted to come home and be with my family. So, you know, and once I felt that energy shift in my heart somewhere else, then that's when I decided to leave. But yeah, as I said, being very grateful to be involved with all the teams I played for.
That's awesome, man. And it's been awesome watching you, you know, play for those teams as well, man. And that's what I love about you, man. It's just your humility, but also just your work ethic, and I've seen that from way back, and just your character and that, man. So, man, I'm getting goosebumps, man. I feel like I want to go play rugby again.
Yeah.
But the gout's in the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, we might be playing against each other.
We'll probably play the golden oldies. So, you know, in your career, you know, you played for many teams, and I know that you know, life of an athlete, there's always challenges. What was let's say maybe one challenge, or maybe challenges that you faced in your career, and how have you taken those learnings and applied it to, you know, how you deal with challenges in life now, especially around this time, COVID and all of that?
Yeah, the biggest challenge I probably had was probably the you know, like the opinions of other people, and dealing with the other part of rugby. So like, I enjoyed training, I enjoyed going to the gym, I enjoyed working hard. If coach was giving me feedback or non-selection, selection, playing well, playing bad, that never really affected me. I enjoyed that process. The part I struggled with was probably the engagement with the fans, and the hard thing with fans is, as much as they love you, can turn on you pretty quick the following week.
True.
You know, and I was brought up in my community where you're playing in front of your friends and family, and played all my rugby here, so you're connected with your fans.
Yeah.
At a level where you see them all the time, you know, so you're a part of it. Whereas when you become a professional, it changes a wee bit. The fans can be a little bit harder on you, and I was lucky in the early days. There wasn't a lot of social media, so if you went on the back of the newspaper for a bad game, then you got away with it. But it wasn't until I went to Japan and I was away from all that, away from media, away from any. You know, in Japan, a lot of people were watching games, and I found that I began to trust myself more, and trust the opinions of the people who mattered, versus trying to please everyone, kind of, you know, outside of my, I guess, circle of trust, if you will.
Wow, that's it's never easy to deal with that, eh? Because, you know, when you're around people that you know, they see you weak, they have your back no matter what, eh?
Yeah, but big time. And again, it's you know, for me anyway, I was, you know, you're trying your hardest every week. Yeah. And one of the things with professional athletes is one of the parts that you need to learn to live with, which is harder, is if you compare it to another job, you know, the guy that works at you know, at Bunnings, if he has a bad day, his boss might deal with him, or his manager or something. Whereas if we have a bad day, we get our coach deals with us, maybe the senior players, as well as the fans, as well as the journalists. So there's a lot of pressure that can be put on someone.
Yeah.
Not including the how fast things move, because you're in the performance industry and the peak performance industry, that if you don't get it right, you could be moved on.
Yeah.
So getting back to the point on COVID, is the one thing that rugby taught me is how fickle things can be.
True.
Potentially people now are realising with their own employment that things can move, people get laid off and made redundant, whereas in rugby, that, as you know, it's on your shoulder for a long time for your career. End of contract periods, injuries, form, change of coach, the way the team's going. There's so many things outside your control that for whatever reason can, and as I see COVID is outside a lot of people's control, that you just need to be able to have your own system and your own processes and your own way of dealing with things, because anything outside of that, is out of your hands.
Yeah. So like controlling what you can, eh?
That's right. Yeah. And one of my great friends used to say to me, because one of the challenges with the start of my career is I wasn't as talented, so I had to work for a lot of things, which means I'm having to control my eating, my fitness, I'm controlling, and I'm conscious of the whole process. But as you get to a higher level, you need to start letting go as well.
Yeah.
You got to be able to do the work you can and then let go. And if things work out, then it works out, And so letting go and let God is one that I use, especially towards the end of the week.
Yeah.
The front of the week, it's important that I put in the work myself. But then towards the back end of the week, you just got to let, whatever's going to be is going to be, and then we deal with it again on Sunday or Monday and start the process again. So to wrap that question up as well is what I would advise people to do right now.
Yeah.
Are you controlling all the parts you can? You're eating, do you have a consistent, have you built some new consistency in the changes going around you? I know in my first couple of weeks I was just eating everything. We're gradually finding a new routine, because we need consistency in any work, and that's an important thing to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice there, especially for all the parents that are watching. They may have lost their jobs or anything like that, or even the athletes. They've been preparing for so long to have their season, and not knowing what's happening. Like what you've just mentioned, is important. Like controlling the controllables, controlling what you can. This is important, and building that consistency. And that, which is very, very encouraging. And I know a lot of the athletes will take that on board and not losing sight of their dream.
And trusting the timing, there's a lot of things out of control, and just trusting that. But potentially, if you flip it, and one thing I like to do is think of, maybe it wasn't the time, for the Wellington job that I'm supposed to be doing at the moment, and some work in Japan. Maybe it just wasn't the time right now. So, what can I do now to prepare myself for when that time comes would be my advice for. And it is a challenge. And you think of all the Olympic athletes who were ready to peak for the Olympic Games, because they put in so much work, and it's a time to express themselves.
It's true.
They've got to dip, but they can't dip too far, because potentially there's going to be another Olympics next year. So, the ebbs and flows are you got to leave those things to, the things that are outside of your control, and make sure you're controlling what you can.
Wow, that's powerful, man. Man, I feel like I'm speaking to like a professor from university, man. Oh, that's awesome, bro.
Might be great here.
The man. Hey, our theme for our number this year is momentum. Like every year, we have a theme. Last year was being relentless. Relentless through, the ups and the downs. And staying on course towards whatever the goal is. This year, the theme is momentum. And building momentum, and especially in these times, sometimes it's hard to build momentum.
Yep.
But what you've just shared about consistency and controlling what you can if you were speaking to the athletes right now, like if you were talking to them right now, what would be, let's say, 2 or 3 things that you could encourage them or even their families on how to build and continue to maintain momentum moving forward?
Well, I mean, if I'm talking to the family or the wider group, I'll first, one thing that we do here is we continue to give thanks. It puts you in a space where you can make good decisions.
Yeah, true.
And, as much as there is to complain about, and as hard as your situation and someone else's situation is, if we stay, stuck in that mental feedback loop, it's hard for us to create new ideas and fresh ideas.
Wow.
I'm not saying we don't deal with the redundancy. We don't deal with the things that are going on in the house. We got to deal with them and we got to face them. But I think face them with the mindset that we're dealing with these in order to get through them to create something else. So before you get into an issue, and as we talked about before we started recording, if you're just seeing the issue, if you're up close to it, that's all you can see.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's listening to a podcast, it's calling a trusted friend, it's talking to your pastor, a coach, to give yourself some perspective.
True.
So you can get a bit further back from it. And because I'm not saying there's not an actual issue, there may be an issue there. But when you get perspective, or another way of looking at it, someone who's dealt with something similar, you can start building solutions.
That's awesome.
But it's important that before you're in that space, because you know what it's like when you're stressed, it's too hard. It's potentially too late. When you're really close, it's harder to make that phone call, to ask for help. But if you know, man, and you get in the habit of asking for help, networking, fellowship, in all these ways where you can look at different solutions, that's a good start. If I was speaking to the athlete specifically and talking along the topic of momentum, I would just treat this like an extra preseason.
Nice.
As hard as it may be, because we peak to perform, so a lot of our programming scheduling is for a period. I would just treat it like, well, you've got more time to perform. Where were the holes in your game? Potentially, as God's saying, you've got another chance to get even better than you were. You've got more time now to iron out some of those creases and make yourself even better as an athlete. Because the flip side of a lot of that, or the opposite of what I just mentioned, is a hard place. And I'm not saying that's not reality, but reality also has two sides, and it depends what side you want to look at. Is oftentimes the result you'll get.
Well, that's powerful, man. I want to take down heaps of notes on what you just shared there, man, for my next sermons. But I mean, that's powerful, bro. And I know that the athletes and their families watching that would take that and apply it. Because right now everybody's looking, how can I continue to build faith? How can I continue to believe? How can I continue to see visions in my dream in the midst of what's happening? And what you've just shared there, man, is some gold, bro. And I know that every person that's watching this will be blessed in that. And so, comes to our last question. And what is next for Tamati Ellison?
Yeah, well, our furniture just arrived from Japan. It's been stuck on the waterfront there in Wellington for the last kind of 5 weeks. So we managed to get here. So we'll be unpacking. The cool thing about coming home and making a conscious decision to come back home is to kind of, is to put our roots down again and sow some new seeds here to bring the kids back to the community that both my wife and I grew up in. And so we're just going to take our time unpacking and getting sorted. It's important, I think, when you're planning, and we will plan as much as we can for this year and our vision for the coming, 5 and 10 year period. So we just taking our time on getting unpacked, getting sorted, and getting ready to put some plans together. So, for us, we've been lucky in that COVID. We haven't had to rush around to work. We've only really just arrived home and potentially needed some time to unpack. On the rugby front, I'm involved with Wellington, the Wellington team. So
nice
in that job for the next couple of years, and that's it's a challenging space, just like all sports in the world. And my real intent for that is to get back to connecting the grassroots piece, and specifically, I mean the community piece, and getting the community back in the health and fitness. There seems to be a lot of that now in your F45s or your group fitness programs. But in some of the organised sports, the numbers seem to be dwindling a wee bit.
Yep. So
just trying to work out, and only because I'm a rugby guy, I wouldn't really care if it's basketball or soccer or crumping, so long as people are doing something for their their mental health and physical health.
Yep.
And then again, fortunate to be doing it back in a community that gave me so much. So that's the initial plans at the moment, and that's the passion pieces was for my city, and as I said, fortunate to be back here.
Man, that's awesome, man, and we're excited to see you go into this next phase and in this new season of your life for you and your family. Man, on behalf of every rugby person that you have impacted, we want to say thank you to you, man, for your career and what you have done, man, and it's definitely impacted many people, including myself, and so grateful that I even got to play alongside you, watch you do, what you did and the amazing stuff you did, and we're just here to stand by you, man, and pray into your next season they'll be successful, and that God will use you mightily to continue to make an impact like you did on the field. In that, but Thomas, man, want to thank you. Thanks for coming on, man, and it means a lot to us, man. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to all of the athletes that are watching. And we would love to get you on again at some stage. We have our Momentum Conference coming up in about 2 or 3 weeks, where we're going to get athletes from across the world zooming in, to do a bit of more kōrero, awesome. And chat about different topics. But man, we'll definitely be in touch, man, and look to get you in on that call, bro.
Yeah.
But any final words?
Oh no, man! I think I always speak too much anyway. So as I said, happy to help. Miss Melbourne Road when the gates open, I'll get back up there and we'll catch up in the flesh. But I appreciate the time.
You always got a room here at my place, brother. Come and we'll have some Tongan food.
Olympic race.
But thank you again, Tom. Blessings to you and your family. And we'll definitely catch up soon once all this blows over.
Awesome.
But bless you, brother.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Chris.
No worries. Well, there you have it. What an amazing time with Tamati Ellison. Tamati, massive thank you to you and your family for allowing you to come on and share that wisdom with us. We wish you nothing but the best and pray many blessings over you in this new season that you're walking into. And, we are forever grateful for the time that you spent with us this evening. Again, next week we'll be back with our podcast again, week 5 of our More Than Just a Game podcast. So make sure you tune in again, same time, same place, here with your boy CA Motivates. Let's go.